Hi guys, and welcome to this week's Mental Monday. So this week I wanted to talk about fear. Fear, I think, is something everybody experiences to some extent, of course, but others more so. Fear is also something that can be debilitating if we let it. It's something that sometimes we allow it to stop us from going after things that we really want to accomplish or that we're passionate about. It keeps us in this little bubble and we pull into ourselves in response to it instead of being vulnerable and open and allowing whatever's gonna come to come. So I think this is huge when you look at trying to accomplish things. I think it's huge when you look at trying to build relationships. I think it's also huge when you look at how it can affect just our overall functioning. So fear does have some very real functions. I was given a book called The Gift of Fear maybe 7 years ago, and it's all about our fight or flight response that can guide us through really scary situations. They specifically talked about it in situations of being held hostage somewhere, of having somebody break into your home, of girls that are abducted. All of those circumstances, fear can be the biggest tool that gets you out of there. It brings out your natural survival instinct, and it can heighten all of your other senses so that you can really be aware of what's going on around you. And through that, you are able to navigate your way out of the situation. And the illustrations in the book are really, really awesome. If you like books like that, I would recommend looking it up on Amazon or at a local bookstore. It's called The Gift of Fear, and it is incredible. So the biggest thing I took away from that is to feel thankful for the responses my emotions give me sometimes, and to kind of look at them as a tool rather than something I have to deal with. So fear is something that gets to me quite a bit, and I started becoming way more aware of when I was reacting out of fear versus legitimately not wanting to do something. I am somebody that my nerves are hot wired to my stomach. So if I'm nervous or anxious about anything, my stomach goes crazy and it just completely tightens up, and it's not a good feeling. And I know when I feel that, I am afraid, I am anxious, I'm nervous. When it comes to big things happening, it can be kind of hard to discern when I'm making decisions out of fear and I'm just afraid of what's gonna happen if I go through with it, or if there's legitimate reason not to go through with it. And I would love to be able to use that fear as a motivation rather than feeling like it controls me being able to use it as a tool and not control it necessarily, but not let it hinder me at the same time. So in order to overcome fears, you have to know what you're afraid of. Now, there are different levels of that, because you can have a more specific, I'm scared of dark places, and then you can go into, but my underlying fear is of things I can't see, the unknown. And I know I've talked a lot about my fear of the unknown, and it bleeds into everything. An underlying fear can be a part of so many different other smaller fears and feed them, and then they feed off of each other until it becomes this massive anxiety-inducing thing. So overcoming fears can look like a lot of different things. There's no one way to overcome fears. There's no one thing you have to do to stop being afraid of something, and it might not even look like not being afraid of that thing anymore. And you could get into whether it's a rational or irrational fear. My approach is trying to get me to think more like what's gonna happen is gonna happen. If I'm gonna die, God already knows that I'm gonna die in that circumstance at that time, and that's what He has planned, and honestly, I get to go to heaven out of it. So either way I win. Whether I were to survive or not, I will be okay. And surviving can look like a lot of different things as well. I mean, you can look fine on the outside physically and be very, very mentally wounded from something. This can manifest itself in a ton of different ways. Another kind of technique for not overcoming the fear necessarily, but not letting it get to me or overwhelm me is to recognize that moment when I become afraid or anxious and work on calming myself down. That can mean not thinking about something. That can mean distracting myself. That can mean focusing on what I actually am able to control and get done, and putting all of my energy and resources towards that in that moment. Doing something productive instead of sitting in the same place just being afraid. I think that's just good in general to have a practice of being able to self-soothe, calm yourself down when you do have moments of that, and think really hard about what you actually are able to do and what is most productive. That's easier said than done in the moment, of course, but the more you work on something, the more you don't have to think about doing it in the moment. You just do it. And that is creating new habits. That's creating new and healthier thought patterns. And that is definitely something I have been thinking about a lot and wanting to work on. So this was my spiel on fear. I know I've said a lot that most of my anxiety and fear comes out of fear of the unknown. So applying the more habitual thought pattern that God's got this. It's not about what I'm able to do. It's not about where I am at that second. He's in control of everything that's going on. He knows where He's taking me. He knows what He's doing, and He has a plan and a purpose for it. So I don't have to be afraid. With God, no matter what happens, it's going to be for my good, even if it's not fun. And that can be hard. When something is not fun, when something is unpleasant, or when you feel really, really hurt by something, or you just feel alone and afraid, that can be hard. That can be so hard to get yourself out of. And I think it's in those moments that we most need the ability to put ourselves in the mindset of using our fear as drive and motivation, and tap into it as a tool instead of letting it overwhelm us. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it and got a little bit of encouragement and motivation. I hope it helped you in some way. If it did, I would love to hear that in the comments. And if you want to share what fears you have, I would love to hear those. If you have any other tips that you've found helpful in overcoming fears, I would love to hear those as well. And as usual, share this with everybody, get the word out, get the conversation going. And if you are not already subscribed, click the screen and subscribe, and then you can see when the next video comes out. Now I will see you guys in that one. Bye.